see here. I've lost my notes for the show today. St. Anthony, help me. It's day 2 with Jerry and Debbie. We're going to talk about St. Anthony. You love him, Debbie, don't you?
He is one of my favorite saints, St. Anthony. Love that prayer. Dear St. Anthony, please come around. There's something lost and must be found. It is ingrained in my brain whenever I lose anything, misplace anything, or just need that extra help in finding something. And St. Anthony is truly a loved saint by so many. You know how we know that, Jerry? Because our social media has exploded with St. Anthony stories. Dear listeners, you are amazing. You have just shared so much about how you love St. Anthony. So today's the day focusing on St. Anthony. If you, we're going to give, no, the phone lines are going to fill up very fast. 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, that's 1-800-585-9396. You've got to have your own St. Anthony story, how he helped you find something. And we're going to actually have a guest on. Father Pat McCloskey is a Franciscan priest. He is at the Shrine of St. Anthony in Cincinnati. We'll have him on in just a couple minutes. And with his help, Debbie, we're going to kind of situate St. Anthony in his text, talk about who he was, what made him so popular, what made him a saint, quite frankly, and also maybe kind of cut through, sometimes, we look at things like a St. Anthony helping us find something almost as magic, Debbie, but it's not. It's he is close to God. He's in heaven. He's our older brother in the faith, and really that's how something like this works.
If you internet search St. Anthony, it comes up just several times how much he is perhaps the most loved and admired saint, because he does feel so close to people, and people can trust him and rely on him, and they see usually immediate results. And so St. Anthony is just an amazingly loved saint, and I'm so glad we're going to be having Father Pat on really soon, because he can maybe clear up some of the myths around St. Anthony and some of the great, beautiful characteristics of St. Anthony that we all admire even today, hundreds of years later. So this is going to be a great show. Call in at 1-800-585-9396.
Just to give you an example of what some people are posting on social media, a wonderful listener named St. Anthony helped us find our adopted son. We lit a candle and prayed to St. Anthony the Sunday after submitting our adoption application. We asked if there was any way he could help us find a child to love and raise. He estimated a 6 to 9 month optimistic wait, potentially up to 2 years of waiting if we had failed matches. St. Anthony stepped in, and we were called 3 weeks later about a wonderful woman who chose us to adopt her son. The match went through, and we couldn't be more in love with our little boy. We named him Luke Anthony in Thanksgiving, and forever we'll be grateful for his intercession on our behalf. So, Debbie, it's not just finding lost car keys. In this case, the intercession of St. Anthony helped Mary and her husband find a boy to adopt.
Well, that's what we were just saying, Jerry, is that St. Anthony, immediate results happen when you entrust your prayers for St. Anthony to intercede. And that's what's so beautiful about this wonderful saint. And I think it's perfect that we're having Father Pat on so he can share with us maybe of what St. Anthony was all about, so we can get a better understanding when he walked this earth, what characteristics he's still showing while he's in heaven. How cool is this? This is a great topic and a great saint, and I'm ready to go. I hear Father Pat's with us.
He is. Father Pat McCloskey. He's been a priest for 40 years. He's the Franciscan editor of St. Anthony Messenger magazine, the author of 3 columns, and editor of 4 other St. Anthony Messenger Press publications. He has most recently written Ask a Franciscan, Answers to Catholic Questions, and is the author of 5 previous books. Order of Friars Minor. He belongs to St. John the Baptist province that's headquartered in Cincinnati. Father Pat, it's good to have you with us. Welcome.
Right. If I could just add one thing immediately. My most recent book is called Peace and Good, Through the Year with Francis of Assisi.
Wonderful. Where people will find that, I suppose, at all of the...
.org.
Very good.
Right.
Well, Father, You've probably caught a little bit of our conversation here. We want to do St. Anthony, and we want to hear from our listeners about their stories of how he's helped them. But if you could just tell us a little bit of biographical information about him first, that would get us started.
Right. Well, Anthony was actually baptized Fernando, and he was born in Lisbon, in Portugal, late 1100s, and became an Augustinian. He was an Augustinian canon, first in Lisbon, and then he moved to Coimbra, which was, in fact, the royal capital. And he studied Scripture. He was probably ordained a priest there in Coimbra. And in the 1200s, five friars went to Morocco. It was actually in the year 1220, and they were martyred there. Well, they were brought back, their bodies were brought back to Coimbra, and Anthony approached the friars who had a house in that city and said, I want to be a missionary. I will join your group if you will promise to send me to Morocco as a missionary. And Anthony may have expected to become a martyr himself. In any case, the house where the friars lived there in Coimbra was named after Anthony of Egypt, a famous monk of the 4th century. So Anthony went to Morocco but fell sick. On his way back home, his ship was blown off course. He landed in Sicily. He joined up with the friars there who were on their way to Assisi. And so he went to Assisi for a general chapter, a meeting of all the friars, when the number of friars was small enough that they could do that. And at the end of the meeting, he went to Bologna, or the province headquartered in Bologna, and the provincial needed a priest to celebrate Mass. Friars at a hermitage, a small hermitage at Monte Paolo, and he went there, and while he was there, the friars went to an ordination with the Dominicans, and there was a mix-up about who was supposed to preach, and so Anthony preached on the obedience of Christ, and all of a sudden they realized that this man was more talented than they had given him credit for, and then he was assigned to teach the friars Scripture in Bologna.
Wow. Father Pat, I real quickly, I want to say buongiorno because I understand you're fluent in Italian.
Well, I worked in Rome for 6.5 years at our general headquarters.
Very cool, very cool. Well, and Father Pat, I wanted to ask you because St. Anthony of Padua is always known as like the Italian saint, but in fact, he was born in Lisbon, Portugal, but because his ministry, like you said, through Sicily and all throughout Italy, have Italians kind of adopted him as, their own? Is that how they've done that?
Well, actually, he had a 3-year spell from 1224 to 1227 when he was preaching in southern France. Okay. At the time, there was a group of people known as Albigensians. They were Christian heretics who believed that only spirit things are good, matter is evil, and they're very much in favor of sacraments, in favor of a visible church, but they could just get very, very enthusiastic about the spotless church in heaven. And so Anthony preached in southern France for about 3 years, and then from 1227 to 1230, he hoped to go back to preaching in Italy, but the friars said, no, your talent would be very good as the minister of the friars in northern Italy. So he served in that connection for 3 years, traveling around northern Italy. It was actually only in the last year of his life that he made his headquarters in Padua.
Okay.
And he died outside that city. There is a huge church that was put up, soon after Anthony's death, combines several styles of architecture, and is quite the pilgrimage site.
That's what I understand. Father Pat, real quickly. So Padua, is that where I understand his body was not incorrupt, but his tongue was. And so is it true that his tongue is actually displayed is it in Padua?
In Padua, in a reliquary.
Wow.
Now it takes a bit of imagination to say what you're looking at is a tongue, because it's much shriveled and dark and so on. But his body was moved into the new church there in Padua in the sometime after 1257, because St. Bonaventure was the general minister at the time. And they opened the tomb, and they found that it was mostly bones, except that the tongue was incorrupt, and they thought that was fitting since Anthony had been such a good preacher.
Father Pat McCloskey with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Our phone number, 1-800-585-9396. How has the great St. Anthony helped you find something? And it doesn't have to be, again, your lost car keys, the pen that you got at retirement, or anything like that. It could be something really significant as well. Feel free to join us and share your take, your St. Anthony story. Father, one more thing before we let you go, and that is we've got to talk about this whole patron of lost articles. I know most saints are patrons of numerous things, but of course St. Anthony has the marvelous reputation of helping people find lost items. How did that come about? Was there some miraculous experience? People all of a sudden said, hey, this is the go-to guy for that?
Well, Anthony, there was devotion to Anthony in various countries, and I believe in Spain, the custom arose of writing his initials on a letter to sort of ensure its safe delivery to the intended recipient. Then the cause of praying to St. Anthony, and if what one prayed for happened, then St. Anthony's bread was an offering that was made on behalf of the poor or the sick, and the friars would use these offerings according to that intention. But there was a young boy who drowned at the time that they were building the church in Padua, and I believe it was his mother prayed that he might be restored to life, and then in thanksgiving she made a donation, and so the custom arose of St. Anthony's bread.
Well, Father, I said I would let you go. One other quick thing. Do you have got dozens of stories of how St. Anthony has helped you? Is there any one thing that you recall vividly that you could share with our listeners to kind of get them inspired to call in and share their own stories of this on the show today?
Well, we have a column in the magazine that's called Followers of Jesus, and each month there's a little box there where people write in, about finding wedding rings and car keys and so on. But sometimes people will write in and link Anthony with helping them to restore a relationship. Mm-hmm. And, a former friend with whom the person has had a falling out, or a family member. And so he does it all.
Oh,
fantastic. Father Pat McCloskey, thank you so much again for joining us here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Mm-hmm. Folks, you'll find his latest book, Peace and Good, Through the Year with Francis of Assisi. Again, I know it's on Amazon, probably in Barnes & Noble, and you gave the preferred place to shop for that again. Father, what was that again? Franciscan Media?
FranciscanMedia.org. Franciscan Media is one word.
Father, thank you. It's been a real delight, and we'll turn to you again when we have need of something for us. Thanks for making some time today. We appreciate it.
Awesome, Father Pat. Ciao.
Ciao.
All right, let's get going. We're going to get to a break here, and then we'll lead off with David in Steubenville and get others of you. How has St. Anthony helped you? How do you develop maybe a devotion to him in a special way? Are you named Anthony? Do you have a son named Anthony and one of his names? Let us hear from you. 1-800-585-9396. A lot of activity on social media. Email us, take2 EWTN.com or at Take Two Show on Twitter.
The EWTN Book of the Month for June is My Life with Mother Angelica by Sister Mary Raphael of the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration. In this heartwarming book, Sister Mary Raphael shares an intimate first-hand account of life in the monastery with Mother Angelica. It's available through the EWTN Religious Catalog web store, EWTNRC.com, 24 hours a day, 7 days, or call 1-800-854-6316.
Whether you're at home, at work, in the car, you can follow what he teaches 24 hours each day. We're EWTN Radio.
And just to let you know, I'm a returning Catholic because of EWTN. Bless you guys and keep it up.
And you're invited to visit our website too. Just log on to www.ewtn.com. That's www.ewtn.com.
We're so glad you tuned in to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Today's topic, well, it's the favorite, the loved Saint Anthony. Great, great saint, patron of the finder of lost things. So many people name their children Anthony or middle names. My husband's confirmation name is Anthony. He's just a great saint that is immediately acting and helping us in our lives. Like Father Pat said, restore relationships. He's not only car keys and stuff like that, but Jerry, if you will allow me, I want to share my personal story that I've only shared with religious education students, and I've never really shared it publicly because no one believes it.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Real quickly, Reader's Digest version. I was 18 years old, got my first credit card. My parents gave me my first credit card, and they absolutely put the fear of God into me that if I lost that credit card, I was in big, a capital T, big trouble. And wouldn't you know it, I was 18 and I lost the credit card. And I was so afraid to tell my parents I lost the credit card that I scoured my bedroom, my car, the closet, everywhere I could possibly, every pants pocket, everything to try and find this credit card. And in the back of my mind, I remember my mom saying, just ask St. Anthony to find it. St. Anthony will do it for you. Trust him. So here we go. There was that first prayer. I said, Dear St. Anthony, please come around. There's something lost and must be found. And just then I felt this urge to go back into the closet and to look into the closet. And as I'm walking to the closet, I'm thinking, I did this already. I tore apart the closet. And I had one of those doors for a closet, not an open and shut door, a sliding door. So I slid the door open, and just as I slid the door open, the credit card fell from the top shelf and hit me right in the forehead. I'm not kidding.
How's that for a message?
It was like saying, so if any, call in and share your story, because I believe that St. Anthony has a great sense of humor, because you could just picture him just saying, here's your credit card. And he threw it at my head.
Bonk. I've got my own credit card story. I'll share it later. We got to get to the calls here. 1-800-585-9396. Were you in a pinch and needed to find something? Turn to St. Anthony and he helped you out. 1-800-585-9396. David in Steubenville, thank you for your great patience you've been holding for a long time. You're up first today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hi, David.
Hello, this is David.
Hi, David.
How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. I had a general comment to make. I pray to St. Anthony regularly and do novenas, and one thing that occurs to me is the world is in such a sorry state, and he was such a great dynamic preacher that he preached to the fish when no one would listen to him, and a lot of the things he prayed for, like raising people from the dead, can still be done. The Lord said we'll do greater works than he did. And so we should pray for the salvation of lost souls. You know, all 7 billion people on earth, half of them probably either desperately need a relationship with the Lord or have fallen away. And I know plenty of people like that. So St. Anthony, come around. find the souls that have been lost before it's too late. You know, that type of a thing. That's where I
David,
like to pray.
No, that's a great comment, and I've said it on this show before, and I say it often. One lost is too many. When we think about the price that Jesus paid for every single soul, and really the extreme cost that a soul that gives final rejection of God's grace and mercy, Debbie. David's got a great point. We ought to be praying every day and have I think a greater zeal, and starting with myself to this, we need to have a greater zeal for. Yeah, David's right. Looking around the world today, and we can't judge any particular soul, but there are a lot of people, it looks like anyway, in need of knowing who Christ is.
Well, and David makes a really good point, too, in that there is a tremendous power in prayer, and to pray together as one body of Christ with the communion of saints, and that there is tremendous power to move hearts, change souls, change the country, influence lives. So we've got to take back this idea that prayer is. There is power behind it. We have to take that back and know that. See, so many times people throw up prayers or say, "Oh, pray for me," and they're thinking, does it really do anything? Absolutely. There is tremendous power in prayer. So that's something we can urge everyone to do, and do it well.
Very good, David. Thank you for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Good to hear from you. Up next is Catherine, who is in Rochester, on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Doing
how are
well.
you,
How
Catherine?
Are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I need, I guess I need some prayers or something, but I lost something that meant an awful lot to me. I am a new knitter, and I made a beautiful knitted shawl, and I cannot find it anywhere. And I've been praying to St. Anthony. That was my first response to start asking St. Anthony, because that's how I was brought up. And I haven't found it yet.
Catherine, let me share something with you that a priest shared with me one time about St. Anthony, because in my whole entire life, I only had one time where I prayed to St. Anthony and what I wanted to be found wasn't found. And the priest friend of mine said, well, St. Anthony will not let us down. He just won't. He won't let us down. However, if it's not meant for you to find it, if there is another reason, if there is a greater reason, a greater purpose for the fact that you're not finding it, then that too should be accepted. So I'm just going to give you the same advice that was given to me. And lo and behold, it's funny, because the one thing that was not found in my life that I asked St. Anthony for, almost 10 years later, I found out there was a greater reason. Kind of interesting. So I just wanted to impart that to you, and I hope that helps in giving you peace and to keep the trust up that you have for St. Anthony. He's not going to let you down. It's always for a greater purpose and a greater good. And thanks so much, Catherine, for calling in, listening on the Station of the Cross, and we're just so blessed today.
How long have you been looking for this item, Catherine?
For about 2 months now.
Okay.
For about 2 months now. And usually St. Anthony works pretty quick for me. I do have to say that. He's one of my favorite saints, him and St. Jude. And I just offered it up to, if I don't ever find this beautiful shawl that I made that took me so long to make, the good Lord had somebody else that needed it.
Amen.
More than I do.
There you go.
That's right, Catherine. You got a great perspective on that, and thank you for your phone call as we get set to go to break here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Many more of your phone calls. We'll read what some of the posts are on social media. Share your take on St. Anthony. Has he helped you out of a bind, finding something that you lost? Maybe you didn't find the item you were looking for, but found that it was for a greater purpose. Let us hear from you on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
I am Father Thomas Loya, and this week on Light of the East on EWTN, marriage is the primordial sacrament. It is our sharing the way that God loves. To attempt to redefine this in any way will have disastrous effects for civilization and humanity. Eastern Christian spirituality has something to say about the recent decision by the Supreme Court to redefine marriage. We will see how and what we can do. On EWTN, Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sinnott, and I'm host of EWTN's Celtic Connections. From our studios in Ireland, we take a Catholic look at the big stories breaking in Great Britain, in Ireland, and across Europe. Celtic is the only Catholic news show made in the UK or Ireland. So join me every Saturday and Sunday on Celtic Connections.
For dates and times in your area, log on to EWTN.com.
I have a new love and respect for the Catholic Church, and those of you who waver in your faith, don't you dare. You stick to your guns, because that's the one thing you can hold on to. When everything else disappears around you, you say your rosary, you do what you guys do, but hang on to your faith, and don't you dare fall off the path.
Stay on God's path and listen daily to EWTN Radio.
Prayer that I recommend to you is the Holy Rosary. I am carrying an assault weapon and a 50-round clip.
Hi, this is Neil Walker from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Tune in with Ron Meyer on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Listen to Blessed to Play on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern as host Ron Meyer interviews some of our nation's most gifted athletes to uncover the role that faith plays in the lives of these talented men and women. That's Blessed to Play Fridays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, only on EWTN Radio.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. Thank you very much for your listenership. We appreciate that. Keep the conversation going on our social media. And we're looking for many more of you to like the Facebook page as well, EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook page for Take and Debbie. Love to have you do that, and we're grateful that you've called the show as well. To Mount Juliet, Tennessee, we're going to go next. Suzanne, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. You are on the air. Good day to you, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. Thank
Doing
you,
well.
Suzanne.
Thank you.
I am calling about St. Anthony. He is one of my favorites, and I wanted to share just one of my experiences with him. I'll try to make it brief. And what it revolves around is a pair of earrings that I've had for over 30 years. My husband and I had gone on vacation to Florida, and I had worn the earrings several times, but on the day we were leaving, I could only find one. And let me preface this also is it was to help me to see something that I didn't want to see, that granddaughter and something that she was going through and how it was affecting me as far as, just for your grandkids and your children, how I was hurt for them. But anyway, so we were leaving, and I was praying to St. Anthony. I couldn't find the earring, and I come back home. I look through everything, continue to pray for him. 2 weeks go by. My husband comes downstairs, and he said, "Look." And I said, "Oh, that's great, but I'm looking for this one." He says, "Okay." He goes back upstairs, comes back down. He says, "Look." And he brings me the earrings, both of them. Mm. And I said, "Where did you find that?" He said, "I was in the bathroom, and I felt something pulling me towards your armoire." And I had not gone to my armoire since before we went on our vacation. And he said, I opened the drawer, and there it was.
Wow.
And I said, "It's St. Anthony. I know he's telling me."
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I've shared this with many people. I'm actually a volunteer at the women's prison, and we had 6 women that came into the church last month. One of the women picked St. Anthony as her confirmation name.
Wow. Oh my goodness, Suzanne! I just want to share with you real quickly. When you were talking about how your husband was pulled, that's exactly what happened to me. I remember it vividly when I was 18. The same exact feeling, like I was pulled towards the closet. It's interesting though when you hear other people's stories like your own, and I'm so happy. It's quite frequently or a similar underlying theme that people feel drawn back to something that they've already looked at, or they feel pulled towards it. You just, to me, that just means St. Anthony is so very active and so very close and wanting us to be happy. One thing I just want to share real quickly, he was 36 years old. He did his ministry, he died at 36 years old, very early on in his life, but his ministry was so great. And look how today. I mean, that's how, we talked about his incorrupt tongue, Jerry, and it has to do with the idea that his preaching was so pure and so good. And he wants good for us. He wants us to be happy. How beautiful is that?
The exciting thing is, then as I meet with these women, then they all come in and they tell me their St. Anthony stories that have happened to them while in the prison. So, he's a wonderful saint. He's a wonderful saint. I know he's doing God's work and helping me to see things that I just didn't want to see.
Amen. All right, Suzanne, thank you very much for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Wonderful to have you a part of the program today. The number for others of you to join us is 1-800-585-9396. Real quick, I'm going to slip in my credit card story. Debbie, you mentioned yours. It was just last year in September, I have my apostolate vocation boom, and we were at the National Conference of Diocesan Vocation Directors Convention on Long Island, and we had lunch in the hotel, and I paid the tab, and all of a sudden, I get back. I don't know when I discovered that my credit card was not in my possession, and I thought, oh my, the hassles that you go through when you lose a credit card. So naturally, I went down. I asked the restaurant, has it been turned in? No. I went back to the table where we were sitting, looked around all over the floor on the table, didn't see it anywhere. I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to have to, go through the hoops of calling the credit card company and canceling it, getting a new one and all of that. So again, you mentioned being drawn back to the scene of the crime, so to speak. I thought, I just feel compelled to go back to that table. I don't know why. And I looked all around on the floor again. It wasn't there. I asked the hotel staff, still hadn't been turned in. I don't know, Debbie, it was literally, I don't want to say a miracle because it was a, sort of a natural event that occurred, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw the credit card in the crack of the chair, and it was in such a way that it was up against the back of the chair. So, it was almost impossible to see it. It wasn't sitting on the chair. It was more vertical, tucked into the crack where the seat meets the back of the chair. And I just said, I'd been praying to St. Anthony, and I thought, wow, St. Anthony, I've seen you work before, but this one really took the cake for me. So let's hear what others of you have to say with your takes today. To Lori in Vancouver, Washington, listening on Modern Day Radio. Hello, Lori. Thanks for your call.
Hi. This is actually a story about a friend of mine who I had kind of forgotten about St. Anthony, and she said she woke up kind of, on the wrong side of the bed, and she had laid out her clothes the night before to go to Mass, and she went to get dressed, and she got all dressed, and she went to put her socks on, and she couldn't find her socks. So she prayed to St. Anthony and went and washed her face and did that stuff, and she still couldn't find the sock. And she went around looking and looking and looking and saying a prayer, and finally, like I say, she woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and she finally just said, fine, St. Anthony, if you're not going to help me, I'll just put a different pair of socks on, and, but I'm not going to be late for Mass just because of you. And she was, in one of those moods that we all have at times. And she said she got to Mass before Mass, and she's saying her prayers, and she's really quite involved in her prayers, and someone taps her on the shoulder, which, given her state of mind, she said she looked at this woman, just kind of in a very fussy look, and the woman said, is there a reason? Do you need a third sock? And she said, what? She said, the sock is stuck to the back of your shirt. And she said, he really has a sense of humor.
Exactly.
He was trying to tell me I needed to lighten up a little bit. She said, I laughed my whole day, turned around, and I was just happy all day because he had tickled me so. And she said, from then on, I just decided, he's going to give it to you. You better just lighten up a little bit whenever she lost something. And from then on, but when you said you got hit in the forehead with the credit card, I thought, oh, my goodness, that is so Gene.
Yeah.
It's just he has a sense of humor, and he's going to make you be happy. Because the whole thing was she was trying to get to Mass.
Right.
So why would she not be happy?
Right, and he had and he taught her. But I truly believe he has a sense of humor. I mean, think about it. Saint Anthony was 36 years old when he passed, and he was young. He was young, so I'm sure he had a vibrant personality. He was traveling all through, Italy. And the other thing too is going back to our previous caller, our first caller that we had in. Saint Anthony used to get frustrated, so it shows his passion. He used to get frustrated with the people that he would preach to that weren't accepting his preaching. That's why he went out and preached to the fishes. He went out. So you got to know that he has a very vibrant personality in and of itself. So why wouldn't he continue that on? That was how God created him. And I do believe he has a sense of humor. And I think that story is just precious. I hope, Lori, that you actually put that on social media so people can read it afterwards. I think that is a great story.
Thanks, Lori, for getting a hold of us. And to the staff there at Modern Day Radio and all of our affiliates, too, with Jerry and Debbie. We're going to go next to, Mary Ann in Louisiana. Mary Ann, listening on FM 90.5. Hello, Mary Ann.
Hi.
Hi, Mary Ann.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, I just wanted to call and share all the great things that St. Anthony does for our family. I'm the mother of 5. And so I'm sure you can imagine there's always something lost, usually a shoe or something like finding out the door. And I often pray to St. Anthony, and just like you were saying, Debbie, sometimes his name falls off my lips and my eyes just go to a certain spot, or I just think of a certain place and look, and there it is. And so I've long had a devotion to St. Anthony. Well, my oldest son is 7, he made his first communion. And as a gift, he got the story of St. Anthony on CD. And he's also struggled with eczema his whole life since he was a baby. And so he himself started to develop a devotion to St. Anthony. And one night we looked up who the patron saint of skin illness was, and it happened to be St. Anthony. So my son, his name is Thomas, he decided to draw a picture of St. Anthony, and he put it by his bed. And he's been praying that before his 8th birthday, through St. Anthony's intercession, his skin would be healed from eczema that he suffered. So we just love St. Anthony, and he helps us all the time, and he's great.
Yeah, and Mary Ann, what you're getting at here I think is so important, and I'd love you to maybe just to comment on this for just another brief moment, and that is it's a teaching opportunity.
Right.
As adults, understand the communion of saints and intercession and praying to them, but we're all members of the church, young and old, and our kids need to be taught these things. Mary Ann, have you found that to be the case, that your kids can kind of learn their faith, learn to know who the saints are, and develop relationships with them through things like this?
Sure. Oh, goodness, yes. Especially for my children, I'm sure most. Some of the things that mean the most to them are toys or books or these things that they play with every day, and they often go missing. And so I just always tell them, pray to St. Anthony, pray to St. Anthony. And they see him work in their little 3-year-old and 5-year-old and 7-year-old lives, and they see him find things for them. And it's just a great experience for them to start to really see the love of the saints and the love of God through his saints for them and their particular little desires. And it's really a beautiful thing, and we just love him.
Yeah.
He's always so good to us.
Well, Marianne, we just so appreciate you sharing with us today and your love and your devotion and your family's devotion to St. Anthony. We're going to go ahead and get ready for a break. But before we do, I have to share this because as I'm listening to all of the stories and how everybody truly just really resonates and feels comfortable and close to as a friend to St. Anthony. I used to think it was only me that St. Anthony was helping. Now I know it's hundreds of others. So we're going to go to a break, but when we get back, we're going to hear more about the love we have for this beautiful saint that is working in our lives. We're going to ask you to please call in or keep the conversation going on social media. 1-800-585-9396 is the number to call. We'll be right back after a quick break. Stay with us. St. Anthony.
The Holy Father's prayer for the month of July is that political responsibility may be lived at all levels as a high form of charity. The mission intention is that amid social inequalities, Latin American Christians may bear witness to love for the poor and contribute to a more fraternal society.
What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic?
Why can't women become priests?
I don't understand why I have to earn salvation.
How is it possible that God created everything?
Why do I need to confess my sins to a priest?
Why is the Catholic Church so unwilling to
The Catholic Church is too rich.
Catholics worship Mary and are committed.
As far as I'm concerned, all religions are equal.
You are called to communion with Dr. David Anders. Today, 2 p.m. Eastern, on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
And we invite you to find us on our Facebook page, EWTN Catholic Radio, and the Take Two show, Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. You could also let us hear from you with your takes at Take Two Show, or email us take two at EWTN.com as we get set to go back to your calls. Just wanted to share what Edward imparted to us on social media today. He says, I found my heavy titanium wedding ring sitting on top, all capital letters, T-O-P, top of 4-inch blades of grass, about 10 feet from where I dropped it and where my brother-in-law had trampled the grass searching for it. So,
wow.
Debbie, there's Edward's finding his wedding ring. I'm sure St. Anthony helped with that.
Well, and I have to husband has a titanium wedding ring. It's extremely heavy. So for it to be sitting on blades of grass, here we go again with St. Anthony and his great sense of humor. Oh, okay. So Paul, you have been waiting so patiently. I know you're driving through California listening on Sirius XM 130, but Paul, before I say hello, I have to go through my normal motherly routine. You've got your seatbelt on and you have your Bluetooth working, correct?
Yes, I have a headset on, so and I got my seatbelt on.
Thank you. Okay, Paul.
You guys, I just want to tell you a story about my wife. I bought her a cross on it. It was a beautiful piece of jewelry. It was pretty expensive. And she went somewhere, and when she came back, she said, I lost my cross. She wore it for a couple of years, and then she lost it. And it was gone for like 2 or 3 weeks. She was looking. She looked from the car, from the car to the house. She looked in the house. She looked in all her closets, her toy boxes, everything. And I do woodwork. I was in my garage one day. And she's standing underneath the garage door. The garage door is open. I'm working on a piece of wood. And she says, I wish I could find that cross. And I said, pray to St. Anthony. And I don't know if she did or not, but I'm pretty sure she did, because about 2 minutes later, she's still standing in the same place. She looked down, and that cross was sitting right at her feet. I do woodworking. I have sawdust everywhere. I sweep that garage on a daily basis. And that cross was not anywhere in that garage. It happened. She prayed that prayer, and it was sitting at the part of her feet. And I just said, that is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, Paul, if you felt like this was a miracle. And Debbie, certainly, Saint Anthony, like all the saints, they're the friends of God. They're in heaven. They're in eternal glory with the Father. So they are free, not only free, but they love to intercede for us on our behalf. And through their prayers, God can perform miracles. And it sounds like this may get close to that, if not, in fact, be a miracle. One thing I was going to mention, Debbie, a little bit ago is a lot of the stories we're hearing, too, are just not necessarily miraculous, but just sort of, people going back to where they sense they lost it, or, where they just feel kind of a little Holy Spirit nudge to go back there. So while Paul's, it sounds like, Debbie, was perhaps bordering on a miracle, miraculous finding of the item, for most people, I think it's more of just a natural, it may be miraculous, but we find it more through natural means, it seems like.
Well, and I mean, you got to just imagine it. We're hearing the same stories. I shouldn't say same, but similar stories of the same. 2 or 3 weeks later, we find something, and it's usually in a place that we've looked before, or it's being positioned in a certain position that is so obvious to us when it wasn't obvious before. St. Anthony wants to help us, of course. I mean, just like our job here on earth is to try to get as many people to heaven as possible, that's what his job was. And that's what he's still doing. He wants us to be happy. He wants us to keep going. He wants us to be joyful. See, when we're joyful and we find things and we repair relationships that have been broken, like Father Pat was talking about, that so many are praying to St. Anthony for relationships that are broken, we have more joy in our heart, more peace in our heart, and we're able to be better witnesses of Christ. We're better to be true faces of Christ in the world. And St. Anthony wants that for us. Of course, I think I can't wait to meet him. I have to tell you, I cannot wait to meet him.
Paul, thanks for the call. Be safe out there on the road. We appreciate that very much. You know who we have to do a show on? I'm sure we will. St. Gerard.
Oh, that's
because
your
saint. When we talk, that's the saint I'm named after, because my mother could not conceive for many years.
And my husband.
And then, is that right? Oh, that's right. Yeah,
he's Martin Gerard. Yeah.
Yeah, so one day we'll do a show on St. Gerard and hear from mothers and families whom St. Gerard has helped to conceive when it seemed like it wasn't going to be possible. Well, but
Jerry, you bring up a good point. Why don't we also share that if our listeners could go to take2show.com or on Facebook, maybe post ideas of what they would like us to explore and have conversations? Because obviously we've learned a lot today. We've learned that St. Anthony loves all of us. I mean, and that's something that maybe we didn't know before. So this could be a great way for our listeners to weigh in and say what they would like on future topics.
Yeah, we'd love to address topics that you want to talk about. So definitely let us hear from you on social media. In the meantime, we go back to the phone. Massachusetts, and Lewis is listening to Emmanuel Radio. Hi, Lewis.
Hi. Hello. I'd like to tell you a story about what St. Anthony did for a friend of mine. Well, it seems like that Mrs. Zalaskis was a very devotee of St. Anthony, and she used to go to a shrine in Worcester, Massachusetts practically every day. But about 15 years ago, she passed away. And one day I was at the supermarket, and I saw her son. And I asked the son, I said, you know, your mother had a great devotion to St. Anthony? He said, yes. He said, I want to tell you a story, he said. He said, I went to Padua, Italy, where St. Anthony died, and when I was downstairs and saw all the crutches and all the things that, the miracles that happened through St. Anthony, he said, I saw 2 letterheads on the wall there, and I knew these letterheads were from my mother, because I knew her letterheads. And he said, and she wrote letters to people in charge of the shrine there that she prayed for a miracle. Her son had an accident and had broken his leg, and I guess the doctor says that he would probably never walk too well again. Well, he said, I'm that person. I'm that person that my mother was talking about. And all of a sudden, all the cameras came down, and all the glorious things that happened at that time.
Debbie, here's just another example. And what this is, let me share my takeaway a little bit early on today's show, and that is we underestimate the saints, I think, sometimes. St. Anthony, we talked about him today, but there's a patron saint for just about everything. In fact, there's if you do an internet search for patron saints index, I can't remember the website right now, but they've got lists of saints by topic, by calendar. So if you click on that, there's sometimes, Debbie, there's 15, 20 saints on any given day. And we celebrate in the liturgy certain saints that may be better known or more connected to a certain region, like the U.S. or different countries. But, boy, I'll tell you, this whole idea of the communion of saints, we really should address this at some point on the show, too.
Well, I'm a little bit angry with you, Jerry, because actually, well, I'm just teasing. Well, no, no, that was going to be my takeaway. I feel we underestimate the saints and how there are friends in heaven, and they want us to grow close because they see the beautiful face of God, and they experience that someday. And so they are with us, pushing us and pulling us and just encouraging us. How beautiful is that? I was going to share this. I have to come up with a different one.
I really but you are so brilliant, though. You could come up with any number of takeaways.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that compliment. But anyway, I wanted to thank Lewis. Lewis, thank you so very much for taking the time and calling in and sharing that amazing, miraculous story. But, wow, and we have so many more stories that are coming in on social media. In fact, so many that I can't even scroll fast enough on the computer to keep up with them. So that's pretty exciting.
Well, and those of you who are still on the line there, I wish we had another hour or more to talk about this. Love to hear your stories. Ramona in Canada, apologies, we're just running out of time. Laverne is driving through Pennsylvania, Rennie in Ohio, and Judy in Milwaukee, Oregon. Thank you all for calling, and please keep Take Two with Jerry and Debbie in your prayers. Let us hear from you on a future program. Debbie, coming up in the next couple of days, we get a little bit heavier with our topic tomorrow.
We're going to talk about when you lose a child or when a child has passed on, and maybe what surrounds that, the grief process and how that feels and how that affects our spirituality and how it really tests our faith at times. So it is a heavy, heavy topic and a very deep one. We're going to ask you to pray about it ahead of time because we really want to handle this topic with care. Jerry?
Well, and then Friday, mall people. Debbie, this was your brainchild, so do you want to tease that one or just let people find out what mall people is all about on Friday?
Well, maybe we could ask people to keep guessing what mall people is because we're not going to share it till Friday. You definitely don't want to miss it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Debbie, great job as always. It's a lot of fun.
You too, Jerry. I'm so happy.
All right. Thanks. Keep the conversation going on social media, our Facebook page. Twitter account is @show, and you can always send us emails. Take2, the number 2 at EWTN.com. Great job by Matt and Jeff and Rich and everybody helping to put the program together. Have a great day. God bless.